Okay, so you really can't scroll through your news feed right now without seeing something about Sean Diddy Combs.
No, it's everywhere. That trial's just kicking off.
Exactly. And today, we're going to do a deep dive into some of the really quite disturbing claims that came out during the opening statements.
Right. We're focusing particularly on what was said regarding his ex-girlfriend, Cassie.
Yeah, we've been looking at pieces from Vibe, Hip Hop DX, trying to get a handle on it.
Yeah. The goal here really is to unpack those specific allegations from the trial start, the ones about Cassie, and also, look at the reaction from people like 50 Cent.
Okay, let's get into it. The prosecution's opening statements, wow, they really didn't hold back.
Not at all.
They laid out these major charges, racketeering.
Which is basically a pattern of criminal activity, yeah.
Right. And sex trafficking, plus transporting people for prostitution, all aimed at Diddy.
But the details that really jumped out, the ones making headlines, were these really specific and honestly quite shocking claims involving Cassie.
Definitely. What really struck you about those initial points?
Well, it's just the sheer level of graphic detail right from the get-go. The prosecution alleged Diddy paid a male sex worker to urinate in Cassie's mouth during something they called a freak-off.
Wow. Okay.
And the prosecutor, Emily Johnson, she actually said Cassie felt like she was choking during it. It just immediately sets this really grim tone of coercion.
It's incredibly disturbing imagery. And it didn't end there, did it?
No, not at all. They also claimed Diddy physically assaulted Cassie.
This was after he apparently found out she was seeing someone else.
That's the allegation, yes.
Yeah.
And presenting these kinds of really visceral claims up front, well, it feels like an attempt to really shock the jury, maybe establish this narrative of extreme control and abuse right away.
Makes sense. What did they say about the alleged assault itself?
Prosecutor Johnson described Diddy kicking Cassie in the back and, quote, flinging her around. It paints a picture of pretty intense physical violence.
And then there was the control aspect, the alleged threats.
Yeah, that was another major point. The claim is Diddy threatened to release videos of Cassie having sex with male escorts if she, stepped out of line again.
Good grief. They called them souvenirs of the most humiliating nights of her life.
Right. It really emphasizes the kind of power dynamic the prosecution is trying to establish here.
Yeah.
Just total control.
So how does a defense team even begin to push back against something like that?
Well, you'd expect them to challenge the evidence, obviously. Maybe question Cassie's motives. And actually, Hip Hop DX mentioned Diddy's lawyer has accused Cassie of being violent during the relationship. So they're clearly going to present a very different version of events, trying to shift that narrative.
Okay, so it's going to be contested. Now, adding to the prosecution side, there was this reported testimony from male escort Daniel Phillip.
Yes, that's significant. He reportedly testified that he personally witnessed Diddy abusing Cassie.
So it's not just Cassie's word against Diddy's at this point. What does having an eyewitness like this so early on mean for the case?
Eyewitness testimony can be incredibly impactful for a jury, Phillip apparently described seeing a liquor bottle fly past Cassie's head,
Oh, wow.
hitting the wall. He talked about Diddy grabbing her by the hair, dragging her screaming into a bedroom.
Dragging her by the hair?
Yeah, and then hearing sounds that it sounded like slapping. It definitely lends weight to those physical abuse allegations.
And didn't he say something to Cassie directly?
Reportedly, yes.
Yeah.
He apparently told her that the abuse wasn't okay, that she needed to get help, which adds this personal element to his account.
It's just a chilling story all around. And while this is playing out in court, the public reaction is, well, it's huge. And 50 Cent, he's never been one to hold back about Diddy.
Definitely not.
What's his reaction? Tell us.
For 50 Cent, he often uses shock value, but his immediate posts kind of reflect a certain public sentiment that's been critical of Diddy for a while.
Right, the Instagram post about the urination allegation.
Exactly. The caption, Diddy said in ya mouth, SMHLOL, and using that picture of the mannequin piss statue.
Yeah.
It's a crude reaction for sure, but it shows just how strongly people are reacting to the disturbing nature of these claims.
And Hip Hop DX pointed out he'd been kind of quiet about Diddy lately.
Yeah, so this seems like him jumping right back in now that the trial's started.
He also apparently made comparisons to R. Kelly.
He did. He reportedly mocked R. Kelly for allegedly having a similar fetish, posted something about young women and water being poured in their mouths, calling it R. Kelly's first world tour.
Okay, so what's the point of drawing those parallels in public like that?
Well, public figures often use comparisons, right, to frame things.
Yeah.
So referencing R. Kelly, who, was convicted of sex trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like 50 Cent is trying to link the Diddy allegations to a broader pattern of alleged power abuse in the industry, at least for his followers.
And we can't forget that earlier meme he posted of himself as the whole jury for Diddy's trial.
Right. It just highlights the intense spotlight this case is under, even this early on.
Of course, and this is really crucial for you listening. Diddy has pleaded not guilty to everything.
Absolutely vital context. He's repeatedly denied any wrongdoing.
So while these opening statements and this reported testimony paint one picture,
It's just one side. The defense will get their turn, they'll challenge these claims. And like we said, they're already suggesting Cassie was violent too. It's going to be a battle over the narrative.
there was also that weird detail from Hip Hop DX about Diddy apparently stopping a freak off to go confront Suge Knight.
Yeah, that was a bizarre little anecdote, wasn't it? Sort of hints at the chaotic world being described in all this. Adds another strange layer.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The trial's opening statements have brought out these incredibly serious, very disturbing allegations against Diddy, especially about Cassie.
Claims of sexual coercion,
Yeah.
violent assault, just really heavy stuff.
And we have this reported eyewitness testimony from Daniel Phillip that seems to back up some of the physical abuse claims.
And then there's the public reaction, like 50 Cent's posts, which really highlight how shocking and serious people are finding these accusations as they come out.
It's obviously super complex, and again, it's so important for you to keep in mind these are allegations. This is the very beginning of a legal process.
Exactly. There are going to be conflicting stories. The full picture isn't clear yet.
Which leads us to a final thought for you.
Yeah, something to consider. When a case like this gets so much intense public interest, so much commentary online right from the start, how does all that early information, all those public reactions, maybe influence how we perceive things like guilt or innocence, before all the evidence is actually presented and tested in court?
That's a really important question to think about as this whole thing continues to unfold.